She missed her flight, but what happened next would make her question everything about fate. Danielle Rivers rushed through Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, her tote bag digging into her shoulder and her boarding pass clenched in her hand like it held her entire future. She had 14 minutes to get from Terminal B to Terminal D for her connecting flight to Los Angeles, and if she missed it, the last leg of her journey to Seattle would be gone too. Missing this trip wasn't an option, not when it was her first real chance at an interview that could change everything. She glanced at the screen above her gate as she powerwalked past a crowded Starbucks. Final boarding. Great. Just great, she muttered, weaving through the crowd like a running back in the fourth quarter. Then she saw him. An elderly man in a wrinkled gray jacket, hunched over a luggage cart near the TSA checkpoint. His suitcase had tipped over, spilling shirts, papers, and a family photo frame across the floor. His knees trembled as he tried to bend down, and people streamed past him as if he were invisible. Danielle froze, torn between the gate that promised her future and the stranger who clearly needed help. "Don't do it," she whispered to herself. "You can't afford to." But when the old man reached for the fallen photo frame, his hand shaking so badly he nearly dropped it, something in her broke. She shoved her phone into her pocket and jogged over. "Sir, let me help you with that," she said, crouching to gather his scattered clothes. "Oh, thank you," he breathed. "These hands, they don't work like they used to." She learned his suitcase was headed toward Gate F7, all the way across the terminal, and that his son was supposed to have traveled with him but hadn't been able to. Danielle didn't push for details. She zipped up his suitcase, loaded it back onto the cart, and glanced at her own gate one last time. The clock read 2:41. Her plane would be gone by 2:50. Still, she tightened her grip on his cart handle. "Come on," she said. "Let's get you to your gate." She had no idea that helping this man would cost her the flight and change her life in ways she could never imagine. As they moved slowly through the terminal, Danielle matched her pace to his unsteady steps, her stomach in knots. Danielle was 33, living in a small apartment in Albuquerque, juggling 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, a receptionist at a dental clinic by day, an office cleaner by night. She hadn't taken a real vacation in 5 years, and this trip to Seattle wasn't a vacation either. It was her shot, an entry-level marketing job that could finally pull her out of paycheck-to-paycheck living. Her sister Alina, ever practical, had warned her before she left, "Keep your head down. Make your flight. Don't play hero." For a moment Danielle had heard that voice in her mind, but then she'd seen the old man's trembling hands and couldn't walk away. They talked as they walked. He told her he was heading to Los Angeles first, though he brushed off questions about why. She admitted she was on her way to a job interview in Seattle, if she made it. He stopped near a row of seats overlooking the tarmac, gripping the cart handle for support and lowering himself into a chair, insisting he only needed a moment. Danielle fetched him a bottle of water from a nearby newsstand, glancing at the clock, 2:46. Her gate wasn't even in this terminal, and reaching it now would mean an all-out sprint. When she returned, he introduced himself as Walter Kensington, thanking her for stopping when so many others had simply walked past. "Well, most people aren't me," she said, and he chuckled warmly at that. He admitted his son was supposed to have met him, but plans had changed, adding quietly, "Seems like plans always change." Danielle checked the time again, 2:48, and said she needed to go, but just then Walter swayed as if he might fall, and she caught his elbow to steady him. She couldn't leave him like this. Looping her arm through his, she said, "Let's get you to that gate," and they set off again at a painfully slow pace, every step costing her precious minutes. By the time they reached the sign for Gate F7 it was still a 5-minute walk away, 10 for him. She offered to find him a wheelchair, but he refused, insisting he could make it on his own. She stayed with him anyway. When they finally rounded the corner, the screen above the counter read, "Boarding closed." Walter looked at her with a faint smile. "Thank you, Danielle, for staying with me." Her phone buzzed. Her flight to Los Angeles had departed. Her chest went hollow. She'd blown her shot, but before she could process it, a gate agent stepped forward and greeted Walter like royalty. "Mr. Kensington, we've been waiting for you. Everything is ready." Confused, Danielle watched him nod to the agent and turn back to her. "Looks like this is where we part ways," he said, shaking her hand with a grip far steadier than before. "You've done more than you know." She forced a smile, turned away, and headed for the nearest airline desk to figure out her next move. Before she got there, her name rang out over the intercom. "Passenger Danielle Rivers, please report to gate F9 immediately." Her heart skipped. That wasn't her original gate, and her flight had already left, so why were they calling her? Hoping she'd somehow been rebooked, she hurried down the corridor. At F9, a woman in a Navy uniform greeted her by name and asked her to follow, brushing off Danielle's questions with a simple, "Don't worry. We'll take care of you." They walked down a quiet hallway Danielle had never noticed before, and it no longer felt like an airport at all. It felt private. The woman stopped at a sleek glass door, typed a code into a keypad, and led her into a room that looked like something out of a film. Plush leather chairs, soft lighting, a buffet of gourmet snacks and champagne, and a wide window overlooking the runway. "I think you have the wrong person," Danielle whispered. "I can't afford this." The woman only smiled. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." Then Danielle saw him. Walter, except now he wore a charcoal gray suit, stood with perfect posture, and spoke to two men in sharp blazers with an air of total command. He turned, and that same warm smile spread across his face, but now it carried real weight. "Thank you for waiting," he said, extending his hand. "I was hoping we'd have a chance to talk." "I don't understand," Danielle said. "What is this place? Why am I here?" Walter told her it was one of his airline's private lounges. She repeated. "Yes," he said. "You see, Danielle, I own this airline. I'm Walter Kensington, founder and CEO of Kensington Air." Danielle sank into a chair, stunned. The frail man who could barely twist open a water bottle cap owned the entire airline. "Why am I here?" she finally whispered. Walter folded his hands. "Because people like you are rare. You gave up something important to help someone you didn't even know, and I don't forget people like that." He asked her to tell him about the interview she'd missed, and something in his calm, genuine attention made her open up. The marketing job in Seattle, her small campaigns for local businesses, the years of scraping by on 2 jobs. "You gave that chance up for me," he said. "I didn't think of it like that," she answered. "You needed help. It just felt like the right thing to do." Walter told her that most people rush through life chasing something for themselves, but she had stopped to choose compassion over convenience, and that mattered to him. When she admitted she didn't know what would happen now, that she couldn't afford another flight or the interview she'd lost, he leaned forward. "What if I told you you don't need that interview?" Kensington Air, he explained, was more than planes. It had divisions in hospitality, logistics, and marketing, and he was looking for someone to lead a project building authentic brand campaigns for local communities, someone creative, persistent, and full of integrity. "Are you offering me a job?" she asked. "I'm offering you a career," he said, "if you're willing to take it." When she asked why he'd trust someone he'd just met, he told her plainly, "How you treat people when no one's watching tells me everything I need to know. You chose kindness when it cost you. That's the kind of person I want on my team." Overwhelmed, she finally whispered, "Yes." Walter told her Kensington Group would handle her accommodations and get her home safely, with the role starting the following week. Still in disbelief, she asked if this was some kind of publicity stunt. "I'm not interested in stunts," he said. "I'm interested in people who do the right thing when no one's watching." "That's you." When she worried aloud that she didn't even have a resume with her, he told her she wouldn't need one. She'd already shown him more than paper ever could. He described the role in more detail, wanting campaigns that felt real and connected with people who understood struggle, and when she asked, half joking through shaking words, what the salary would be, he simply said, "Enough that you'll never have to take 2 jobs again." A flight attendant brought champagne, and Walter raised his glass. "To new beginnings." Danielle lifted hers with trembling fingers. "To kindness," she whispered. Hours later, riding in a car arranged by his team toward a hotel, she watched the city lights blur past the window and replayed the whole day. The panic, the choice to stop, the way one decision to put someone else first had rewritten her entire future. It would have been easy to keep walking, to tell herself it wasn't her problem, the way so many others had. But real, selfless kindness still mattered, and today had proven it could move mountains. When her phone buzzed with a message from Walter reading, "Welcome to the family," Danielle smiled through tears, understanding that she hadn't just gotten a job. She'd gotten a chance to live with purpose. Sometimes, she realized, the fastest way to get where you're meant to be is by stopping to help someone else along the way.